April 8th at 7 p.m. More at LydiaMillardWard10.com.
Prepared and paid for by the campaign fund of Lydia Millard, Ward 10.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Tom Winston. Today we'll have some afternoon rain at a high of 44. Tonight, rain possible, snow flurries, and a low 32. For Sunday, more rain and snow, freezing rain, with temperatures stay steady at 34 degrees. Cafe Latte provides a cafe dining experience with delicious gourmet quality food. Cafe Latte, located off Victoria and Grand. Make your reservation or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded. Good morning, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us in ways that get us thinking, and perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a bit more because we've made the connection. Our topic today is women, culture, and our stories, and the joy in finding the humor and perhaps revealing underlying truths. Hosting with me today is Rick Bernardo, who has invited a very special guest.
I have. This is Miss Gina Barreca, who is a professor at University of Connecticut. She's a humorist. She's a feminist. She's a writer. She's, did I say professor? And I had to seek her out some years ago. I had to, morally, because she had written a book I'd seen years before called, they used to call me Snow White, but I drifted. And I thought, just that title alone, I've got to find who this person is someday. And so I've been a fan ever since. And good morning, Gina.
I'm so glad to be here with both of you. Thank you.
And you've got a new book out. We're going to talk about that, called Fast Famous Women. But a little bit about Gina. She's written all kinds of articles for Psychology Today. She's always working, it sounds like, more than one book. This is the fourth book in a series about I can't say it without.
About fast women.
Fast women.
We've got fast funny women. We've got fast fierce women. We've got fast fallen women. And now we have fast famous women.
And I think there's some alliteration there because they also begin with the same letters, some of those words. So it's plus literacy. So it's just, anyway, a little bit from the press release says in 75 brilliant new pieces of flash nonfiction, Fast Famous Women offers sharp, insightful, and delightfully necessary examinations of the often absurd, sometimes thrilling, and frequently crushing experience of being a woman in the public eye. It's not enough for a woman simply to be wildly talented or sublimely accomplished. After all, she must be fast in her rise and conspicuous in her ascent and utterly undeniable in her achievements. And yeah, that rings true, even though I'm not a woman of that gender.
I have a question for you, Gina. Was some of this inspired by seeing Kamala go for the presidency, or had you started to write this before that?
I'd started because there are 75. Thank you. And again, thank you both, Lori.
Oh, absolutely.
For being here, letting me be here with you. The book had started, the idea for the book had started even before Kamala. But we have Geraldine Ferraro is one of the people that somebody wrote about. Sandra Day O'Connor is there along with Sonia Sotomayor and Ruth Ginsburg. That it's the larger context for what was going on as the book was coming out. Actually, the original publication date for the collection was in the fall, but along with the publishers and everybody at Woodhull Press, we decided to wait because we thought the book would not get any attention at all during what was obviously going to be this sort of hellish landscape that we went through, if I can say that. And that, we decided to wait until spring, until Women's History Month, because we figured that one way or another, we would want to look for what's next. And some of us hoped what's next would be very different than what's next now. So that while Harris's campaign was not a direct inspiration for it, it certainly everything about what she was doing is informed by the people who came before her that we talk about in the book, and obviously by, you know, part of this book is for the people who are going to come after us and the women who came before us, because fame, as we sort of define it in this collection, there's you know, there are people that you've heard of and there are people that you haven't, or different groups of people haven't, so that we've got, you know, I'd like to think that everybody knows who Mother Jones is, but my students don't.
Wow.
And so they're, you know, right next to Taylor Swift. Like you pick it up because you're looking for some people that you already know and you want to hear more about how people talk about them. But then, and I don't know whether either of you as experienced as famous broadcasters, do you remember Alison Steele?
Oh, sure.
Alison Steele. So one of who was the Nightbird, and you know, would come on after midnight or around midnight in New York City radio stations.
Yep.
And so one of my students who was going into radio wrote about Alison Steele as an influence, and she went back and listened to her archives and talked about how this was an early strong female voice in late night.
And hearing her voice, literally.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so and how she was inspired by that, and how, you know, it's to know your especially for women, and it's a book that I'm proud of its natural diversity. There are a lot of women of color in it. There's a lot about women of the first trans women writer writing about a trans woman writer. This is the first member of that cohort who's in the book. And so that there, again, it's natural diversity of strength, because people are writing about women who emerged as leaders and changed the world, and where they come from, and why we mustn't let them be forgotten, but also why their stories are so great.
When you write a book, I assume that you make discoveries along the way that surprise you. You might go in with one intent and then take a couple left and right turns that you didn't expect. Were there some aha moments for you? That I know this is your fourth book on this theme, but I have to believe that there were opportunities that went, that's a new way of thinking about it.
Oh, what a great question. And absolutely, like one of the what a delightful, and to me, absolutely a wonderful piece of education was on Annie Oakley.
Oh,
I remember that one.
And Annie Oakley, the terrific writer, she's got a book that's coming out. It's Betsy Kellum, and her book is coming out. Conversations. She would be a treat for you guys to talk to. And she would, I'm sure, be a wonderful, you know, she would love being here. But it's about Annie Oakley's, here's her pull line from the piece on Annie Oakley is, Oakley's most famous bullseye may have been the one she landed in 1903 against William Randolph Hearst and his newspaper empire, because they Hearst published really defamatory stuff about Annie Oakley, and that she had an uncontrollable, Hearst printed that she had an uncontrollable appetite for drugs. They tried to make her into this monster. And she was absolutely sober. She was just great at what she did. She won 54 out of the 55 lawsuits against her and against Hearst. And she was, as Betsy writes, she was as deadly in court as she was with a gun. And this was when, you know, the idea of a woman being a marksman, I mean, even the very term marksman, but again, enjoying her fame and going into what had often been considered a man's arena. And there was Hearst trying to take her down, and she was like,
her moral character from the piece in your book about Annie Oakley, it was clear her moral character and the story about that was paramount, to her work and her life and her commitments. It also reminds me, you got another section on Taylor Swift, and when I became a fan of Taylor Swift was when she was in court as well, and she was deadly in court and about somebody putting their hand up her skirt, and it was just, anybody can find that testimony. It's like it's devastatingly funny and sharp and assertive.
Right. And this is as a young woman, and she was unwavering in the idea that she was a victim of a crime. And that this was, it makes a hash of every argument. Oh, she was asking for it. She's wearing a short skirt. Well, if she's going to be in the public eye as an object of desire, well, these kind of things are going to happen to her. And she's like, no, I'm an artist. I'm performing. I'm in a professional arena. And what you did is illegal. And she also won. And Taylor Swift, the piece about Taylor Swift was written by Laura Rossi and her daughter.
Yeah.
And Julia Totten. And they go back and forth. And there's actually a playlist that you could find online on the Woodhall site, because they do actually her songs as a basically the musical accompaniment to their mother-daughter relationship. And without setting it up this way, there are 3 mother-daughter pairs in the book. They're just
interesting.
Well, so many of the women in this book are both the writers and the women they're writing about. For 75 chapters, they're inspiring to us very much. And
under, I want to, not to interrupt, Rick, but they're all under 750 words, so nobody has to get scared.
It's flash nonfiction.
So it's fast reading women.
Yes, that's actually, that'd be a great title. Yeah.
And with that, we do have to go, but I'm going to let Rick say his last bit, but we're
just the website, GinaBarreca.com. Gina, Gina, Barreca with 2 R's, BARRECA.com. And Woodhall Press is the publisher, and there's a WoodhallPress.com aside from GinaBarreca.com. Go to those sites.
And thank you for joining us on Connections Radio on AM 950. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, designed for those of us more seasoned, I'll say, with informative talk on everything from health, finance, local and regional news, volunteerism, spirituality, and even a bit of humor tossed in. So if you're proud to be a more seasoned listener, tune in to New Beginnings Sunday afternoons at 1 right here on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, AM 950.
With Donald Trump in office, blue cities like Minneapolis have a real opportunity to show what effective Democratic governance looks like. But we need the right leaders. 90% of the time, the DFL-endorsed city council candidate wins in November. That's why the caucus matters. It's your chance to decide what kind of Democrat represents our party. Minneapolis needs leaders focused on safety, affordability, and opportunity, proving blue cities can be a model for Democrats. Yet, only 2% of registered voters participate, and often their views don't reflect the majority of Democrats. But they show up because they know it's the most important way to support their candidate. This year on April 8th, be part of the change you want in your city and party. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. If you care about public safety, city leadership, and the future of Minneapolis, you need to be at the caucuses. Visit WeLoveMPLS.org today to learn how easy it is to caucus. Show up, speak out, take action.
Paid for by We Love Minneapolis. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hey, it's Tom. Even though I don't live in Minnesota, I've spent enough time there to know how quickly the weather can change. One day it's sunny and the next you're preparing for severe weather. That's where solar plus battery storage from All Energy Solar comes in. With this power-saving combination, you'll gain energy independence and stay connected through blackouts, emergencies, or extreme weather. Solar plus battery storage is perfect for rural areas where power outages are more common, or for anyone tired of worrying about rolling blackouts. And with plenty of incentives still available, All Energy Solar will work with you to make sure you get the most savings possible. For over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been a trusted partner in helping Minnesotans move to affordable, renewable energy. They offer the best battery technology and their own licensed electricians and contractors to ensure top quality installation. So stop paying the utility company and start generating and saving your own power. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Good morning. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. And I'm glad you've joined the conversation. Our topic today is women leaders and their stories, and we'll be finding some humor and perhaps some underlying truths as well. Hosting with me is Rick Bernardo, who has invited a very special guest.
I am Rick Bernardo, and we are being joined by Gina Barreca, who's a professor at University of Connecticut, a humorist, a writer, a feminist, an expert in a lot of places, in a lot of fields, and we love having polymaths on our show, which is not a word that comes up that often at dinner. But you are definitely one. And she's got a new book in the series of Fast Women, the Fast Famous Women, and it's got 75. I actually counted. Did you know there's 75 chapters in this thing, Gina?
But they're all 750 words or less, so it's like a little good essay.
Absolutely right.
Yep.
Yeah, like one of those necklaces that has those little things you could just pop it in your mouth and chew on it. What are those called? Smart Tart necklaces? They used to be
They
edible.
don't do that anymore, you know.
Oh, it's coming again.
Is it?
Yeah. No.
Necklaces which no. But I do
Chewable.
remember those.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what it's like. Anyway, and the last words for your introduction to the book says, you say, because women who achieve public acclaim and fame are necessarily insubordinate, interesting, and unnerving. We know reading this book, and when talking about this book, we're in the very best of bad company. And I love that. Yeah. And so did you have an idea before the book was completed compared to after the book was completed that was kind of radically different than how it turned out? I mean, because it's got to be like parts of a puzzle, and once it's done, it's like, whoa, now look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was more, the other books are a combination of people who I've been very fortunate. I mean, Jane Smiley starts this book, right? And Smiley, who wrote, won the Pulitzer Prize, wrote 1,000 Acres, wrote a great academic, really funny book called Moo, about being at like UConn is a land grant college, like University of Minnesota, like University of Iowa. And so she's very funny. And so she's written for 3 out of the 4 books, Jane. And when I didn't, I felt like I was asking her too much. This is a very busy person. Her new books, she's a brilliant author. And when I contacted her for this one, and she said, "Can I really write about anybody you want?" And she said, "I said, absolutely. You can do anything you want. You want to make it like a little pop-up thing. We'll figure out how to do that." And she wrote about Jane Lynch, the actor Jane Lynch, who she said she wants Jane Lynch, not only because they share the first name, but to play her in the movie of her life. It's a hilarious piece. And she's really trying to talk Jane Lynch into doing this. And you'd have to play me across 4 husbands at these different ages. You have to get my St. Louis accent, this nasal flat. She one of her horses insists on playing herself in the film. I mean, it's terrific. And then in one of those wonderful moments of circularity, one of my former students who had recently just come back from a Fulbright in Albania asked if she could write about Jane Smiley as her famous woman. Because when she first started to read Smiley's work, it changed her life. And so it's like, okay, so we've got Jane Smiley writing for the book, and then somebody writing about Jane Smiley as her famous woman. So I asked people, when I put these books together, the anthologies, it's sort of like, my very fancy idea is it's like putting together a mall. You need like an anchor store. So I need, like Jane Smiley and Caroline Levitt, who's the New York Times bestseller, who is just a brilliant author and host of a wonderful show called A Mighty Blaze, where she has often emerging writers come in and talk about their work. She's a great literary citizen. And so, as you said, Rich, that her piece on Fanny Brice. So she's like, I want to interview Fanny Brice. And that's the nice part about creative nonfiction. Mm-hmm. So these people are writing letters to dead people. They're in conversations with people they never met. They're writing from the grave. One of my favorite pieces is written by Linda Button, who writes about Lizzie Borden.
Oh, my
right.
gosh.
And that's another thing, right? So Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks when she seen what she had to give her father. Now, again, my students at UConn some of them know. The jump rope girls know that. But the kids who don't do that don't know that line. So Lizzie Borden, it's one of the best, I think, ends because Lizzie Borden was a woman of real intelligence and independence, who did not like the situation she was in, and
expressed herself that way.
But Linda Borden, Linda Button, who has worked as a writer and often as a business writer, worked in industry, in PR and marketing, uses the language of that when writing about Lizzie Borden in the first person. So it's Lizzie Borden from the grave. But the last line of her essay, not to give everything away, says, yes, I had to make plans and then execute them.
Oh, perfect.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Interesting how history is passed down through jump rope as well.
But the execute sort of
exactly
sort of chill.
Excellent.
Exactly.
I'm always careful how I use that word. Yeah.
But it's a big. I didn't realize how big a word it is in business now, that there are people who are. Yeah, they're the executioner, and it's like, what do you do? I mean, I know you get help
things, and then you get terminated.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I always get nervous when they want to execute efficiently.
Exactly.
I got to call back to the Fanny Brice chapter you mentioned. There's a quote that I think it was Sondheim was saying. Fanny Brice was written by, is it Caroline Levitt? Is that how you say it?
Yes, Caroline Levitt.
Yeah. Never hold back. Fanny Brice says, you got to always be fearless. Don't hurt people, but don't care about what they think either. As Sondheim says, don't worry so much about being nice, which is different than being good. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really big distinction because, being nice is following the rules. And even nice, you think about the use of the word nice going back to the 17th century, it's like the word fine. It just meant attention to detail. It didn't have a moral value.
It's substantial. It doesn't go that deep necessarily.
Right, exactly.
But sometimes nice is used as a control. Be nice.
Yes.
And how you're supposed to behave fits within that.
Right. Where you have, absolutely. Where you're not being, again, good out of something that's going to sustain, again, to go back to your show, a connection between people, but that's going to follow the rules.
Comes up in morality a lot, in the sense that sometimes if you don't want to tolerate Nazis, you don't have to be nice to them.
Exactly.
I'm a little perplexed about wanting to have that end the segment.
No.
I will, because we need to move on.
It's about substance.
And you can talk about how that all ties together. But I do want to make sure that folks know GinaBarreca.com And also, her book is published through woodhallpress.com. And we'll be right back after a few good commercials that support our AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Crooners is a classic supper club with a wide range of entertainment. Make your reservations for a parade of international, national, and local artists in the main stage showroom, the intimate Dunsmore Jazz Room, or outdoors at the seasonal Belvedere Under the Stars space. Or enjoy Maggie's Piano Lounge. Enjoy 4-star food and drinks with first-class supper club service. What are you waiting for? Go to croonersmn.com for more information and schedule. That's croonersmn.com.
You may not think of it, but winter is a great time to take care of those exterior home projects. This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction. Most people wait until the warmer months for their exterior home projects, but labor costs are actually lowest in the winter. And that's true for the contractor I trust, Snap Construction. Arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation contractor in the metro. Are you noticing ice dams on your house? Or is your furnace constantly running and you're still not comfortable? In addition to your exterior home projects, winter is also a great time to get your insulation checked with a free energy audit from Snap Construction. The average cost to upgrade your insulation is oftentimes less than a new furnace. Plus, there are rebates available from your energy provider when you upgrade your insulation. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. So don't wait for prices to rise in the warmer months. Get a free estimate now by calling 612-333-SNAP, 612-333-SNAP, or go to snapconstruction.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Klopfleisch. Join me every Sunday at 5 p.m. for Politics Matters. We'll talk about how civics, politics, and law affect you by highlighting a different topic each week. On this week's show, we discuss my experience at a town hall meeting, talk about some of the special election news in Minnesota and some good results from Pennsylvania, and how the Republicans are going after judges who are ruling against them. Tune in Sundays at 5 p.m. for Politics Matters with Bruce Klopfleisch to discover why government and civics matter. And podcast the show anytime on your favorite app.
Reading can help manage stress and anxiety during these chaotic Trump years. If you're craving something lighter, check out Next Chapter Booksellers' new fiction tables. Explore their collection of Japanese and Korean healing fiction. They're cozy, whimsical stories filled with magical cats, quaint cafes, and more. Or if you're in the mood for something more intense, check out their upsetting shelf, filled with the strangest and most surreal novels you'll find anywhere. So have Next Chapter Booksellers help you keep your sanity over the next 4 years. More at nextchapterbooksellers.com.
Step into a world of financial empowerment with the Do Different Better show. I'll be your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Join me Sundays at noon on AM 950 as we do a deep dive into wealth education with topics like investing, real estate, and entrepreneurship. No nonsense, tell it like it is, keeping it 100 for everyday people like you. Tune in to get practical insights to rewrite your financial future. So each Sunday at noon, let's do different better. You can hear Do Different Better anytime on your favorite app. Learn more about me at socialimpactnow.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Tom Winston. Today we'll have some afternoon rain at a high of 44. Tonight, rain possible, snow flurries, and a low 32. For Sunday, more rain and snow, freezing rain, but the temperatures stay steady at 34 degrees. Cafe Latte provides a cafe dining experience with delicious gourmet quality food. Cafe Latte, located off Victoria and Grand. Make your reservation or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Lori Fitz, your host. And we talk about ideas that matter. And I'm glad you've joined the conversation. Our topic today is women leaders, their stories, and finding humor, perhaps revealing some underlying truths as well. And hosting with me today is Rick Bernardo, who's invited a special guest who has special insight into fast, famous women.
Fast, Famous Women, the fourth book in the Fast Women series that includes ferocity and being funny and other F words. So
that scares me. Hi, Gina. We're glad you're here.
Sounds bad. But let me read a little bit from the press release about the Fast, Famous Women. It says it's written with wonder, insight, and respect. Talking about famous women from Taylor Swift, Mary Shelley, Annie Oakley, Shirley Chisholm, and Lizzie Borden. They're all subjects which allow us to grasp the perilous excitement of wanting fame or perhaps wanting to step away from it. To be a woman in the spotlight is to walk a tightrope to balance on the narrowest of beams, where every misstep or excess is magnified and every achievement is fraught with the potential for ridicule or resentment. So there is that tension in just about every chapter in a very different way, Gina.
Welcome, Gina Barreca. We're glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. So glad to be in conversation with both of you. It's always such a great time. And I come away with ideas from this, from our conversations. It's wonderful to talk to both
I'm
of
so
you.
glad to hear that. Our hope is that it's just a great conversation that we have, and the audience gets to join in the conversation with us, which
Right.
I get some great feedback as well about how it's a little bit different of a radio show where it's more about the conversation than it is trying to tell people things. It's invitational. So I'm delighted to hear that you bring some things out of it as well.
Absolutely. Well, and this is what, not to hitch my wagon to your star, but it does, that's what I want to do with these books. It's like when I invite writers to be in it, or when writers approach me about submitting ideas, it's, I say, it's like a dinner party. It's like having a dinner party with 75 people at the table, and with 75 women writers, there are going to be people out smoking on the balcony and having martinis. There are going to be people huddled in the corner near a small fire, drinking tea from flasks, and which really just do contain tea, and having a cozy conversation. There are going to be women who have the music turned up. There are a lot of people writing about music in this. So we have a wonderful piece on Nancy Wilson, again, being the background to somebody's life, Sharon Bailey, who's a journalist, and Patti LaBelle is in here. I mean, we've got, as well as Taylor Swift, so you've got lots of different people, the way that they're inspired. But this book particularly, the other books have been like that too, the other three collections that you were kind enough to mention. But and the books are available anywhere. They're distributed, it's not a self-published book, so you can buy them. God help me, you could buy them at Target. You can get them you can get them at your local independent bookstore, which is what, of course, I hope you do, but you can get them in Walmart. So or they'll order it for you.
And I was thinking of you with the commercial that came on about a small bookstore that supports us, and how they framed it as like reading can really be helpful during.
Yes, I love this. I was looking. I want to go to the unsettling shelf. Right?
Yeah,
the unnerving shelf. I mean, I'm actually teaching a course this semester on horror and literature, and it's been cathartic for everybody. I mean, it's really it takes your mind off stuff. Anyway, but
and perhaps your book is cathartic for women too.
Well, I think it's cathartic for women and for men. I mean, to see, this is not, you don't have to show your DNA pass when you come on into the paper. But this has 150 people at the party, because not only is it the writers, but it's who they've chosen to write about. So this is a even bigger gathering, so that you have Dolores Huerta talking to Simone de Beauvoir, who's talking to Margaret Sanger, who is talking to Golda Meir. I mean, so you've got all of these these wonderful places. One of a great writer named Niamh Emerson, who grew up in Ireland, has an essay on Queen Maeve of Ireland, and that she went as a child. Her family would go up, and this is where they would picnic, and so Queen Maeve was this warrior queen. I mean, she is buried standing up, so that she is ready for the next fight, right? That she is buried standing up, facing Britain, so that if Ireland is again threatened by Britain. But one of her lines where, so that Maeve, one of the things that Niamh writes is, Maeve had several men in her life, and at one point made it known that her mate should be without fear, meanness, or jealousy. And then Niamh writes, ancient mythological queens, they're just like us. It's such a wonderful. But the interesting part is that you read about these women who, and you read about most of the writers, say something about their childhoods or their personal lives, the women under discussion, and you realize that they aren't just like us. That they did not, like, they weren't born famous, or even if the ones who were born famous. There's a great interview as if Eleanor of Aquitaine were being interviewed like by a women's studies class. Right, or at a women's studies conference, and people are saying, "Well, you were the daughter of this, and you're like," it's just like, I'm sorry, but I thought being in 2024, when the book first was copyrighted, 2025, I didn't think I'd be asked questions about who my father was, who I'm having sex with. It's like, what's wrong with you people? Why are you asking me? And I thought that is exactly what we do, because we know Eleanor of Aquitaine much more through, where she was situated in terms of the hierarchy of power at the time, which was decided by who her father was and what men she had in her life. But the great character of Eleanor Aquitaine, as the writers who came up with the essay decided, it's like, no, I want to talk about the important things in life, which are my military strategy, my writing of poetry, my vision of the world, and what I need you to go out and do, because you had privileges that I didn't have.
What's wonderful is you talk about each of these women and the sense of them being at a party and gathering all of them. I also flashed to it's somewhat the modern version of the Great Gatsby, only it's the Great Gina party.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope to have a better ending.
Yes. Well, but that's because it's the Great Gina party.
It's a different book.
It's a different book, but it has the same sort of party concept of bringing all sorts of characters together.
It's the idea, like your show, it's the idea of a gathering. It's the idea of having a lot of different voices come in and realizing from all these different perspectives and through time that we come back to the essential parts of life. And as Rick suggested, that they come back to ethical choices. They come back to how do we best live in the world that we have, respect the honorable parts of history that have put us here, understand and are informed about the dishonorable parts of history so that we do not repeat them. And how do we pass along a world that will that remember how it was built, that understands that the conversations have been going on for 10,000 years, but that keeps the conversation at its best so that it doesn't descend into bitterness, anger, and a rehearsal of platitudes from people who are already entrenched in their own, fenced in ways of thinking, but that can speak across different ideas or perspectives. I mean,
and we talked earlier about how it impacts both men and women. And I know there was a particular passage that Rick was moved by.
Yeah, and this relates to what I was going to also say about what you were just saying, Gina. You're talking about a way to be powerful in a way that's not controlling or just trying to manipulate or having an agenda. It's truly spiritually powerful. It's morally powerful. It's inspiring. When we are a certain way in the world. And there's this conversation I'm hearing throughout your book between ancestors and future generations. And that's that can only happen at this deeper level of inspiration. One of the women in the book is Maya Angelou.
Yes.
And that chapter just resonated with me. It was just about really sitting next to her on the plane.
Right.
But I remember a friend of mine that we had on the show actually arranged a concert with her and her son, Guy Johnson, one time years ago. I'm dating myself, but somebody has to. And she sang, she read poetry, she had conversations with her son about what it means to have a meaningful life. Afterwards, I got to sit with her, and she held my hand for, like, I don't know if it was 2 minutes or 2 hours, because I was in a trance the whole time, and she was looking at me. I can't remember what she said, but I'm still spiritually scarred in a good way from that. I'll never forget it. So just sitting on the plane next to her, I can imagine I could hear the same voices as the author in that chapter.
And, well, it's wonderful. It's Leanne Lord, who's a stand-up comic. And, and so she's brilliant. She's a Black woman. She actually tours with a group called Women of a Certain Age, and she's hilarious. So, and she writes the letter to Maya Angelou going, "My Maya," and going, well, it's disingenuous to claim Maya Angelou is mine, but don't we all kind of feel that way? And clearly, Rick, you do. That Maya Angelou is one of those people who, when you meet her or when you engage with her, it's like, that's my Maya. And so that she is, and she's like reacting to her like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to her. Oh my God, what do I do? And then she's going, Maya Angelou has a laptop. And then the favorite line is, a flight attendant asks Miss Angelou if she wanted anything to drink. Yeah. Without missing a beat, she said, I'll have a vodka and orange juice. And then Leanne writes, the voices in my head said, well, damn, is that why the cage bird sings?
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Every chapter in this book is wonderful that way.
And Leanne goes on to say, well, and now that my Maya has taken her final flight, her seat next to me, while vacant, will never be empty. I mean, the writing really, people, and this is a stand-up comic writing, the people who are serious historians and ethicists and whatever who are writing are funny, and the funny women writing are writing philosophically and lyrically, and because it's all from the heart. And both of you know that what is said or written from the heart is what matters.
And we've talked about the connections between humor and truth on previous conversations too. So that resonates all over the place as well.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to our next segment as well, about some of the ideas that you have for looking at maybe the next book. So stay with us. The two websites that I want to make sure our audience know about is GinaBarreca.com, and her book is published through the WoodhallPress.com. And that's Gina with a Gina, last name BARRECA.com.
Hello, everyone. I am Becky McMahon, along with Tara Martini, hosts of Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This Sunday, tune in as we process through emotional sharing through social media and how this impacts all of us.
And if you have a question about digital wellness, visit our website at www.becomingtogethermn.com. Look for the Feels Out Loud page. We may just share your question on the show, so join us at 9 a.m. to live and share mental health together.
Are your remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Hey, it's Patrick. Spring showers may bring May flowers, but they also bring big savings with Zero Res. And right now, you can beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our heroes at Zero Res. Zero Res removes winter's buildup and lingering odors, giving your home a fresh, spring-ready feel, preparing your home for the brighter days ahead. Just check out the almost 21,000 raving customer service reviews online with a 4.9 Google rating and see what all the hype is about. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from Minnesota's #1 carpet cleaner, starting at just $119, and take $75 off an air duct cleaning as well. You owe it to yourself and your family to breathe healthy, happy, and clean. Call Zero Res right now at 9520-RES or go online to ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the AM 950 special. Spell it backward or forward, it's the same. Zero Res.
AM 950 invites you to celebrate 15 incredible years of Matt McNeil's progressive voice on the air. But time is running out. The event is this Sunday from 2 until 5 o'clock at Crooner Supper Club. Enjoy a delicious sit-down meal, heartfelt video messages from Matt's friends, and a special on-stage interview with Matt led by fan favorite Nancy Nelson. Tickets are $75, including dinner, and must be purchased in advance at am950radio.com. There will not be tickets available at the door. Don't miss this milestone event. Get your tickets now at am950radio.com before it's too late.
I'm Shelley Medore, and I'm running for City Council in Ward 2 because Minneapolis needs leadership that listens, engages, and takes action. Too many people feel left out of decisions that impact their lives. That's why caucusing matters. On April 8th, you have the power to shape our city's future. Caucus for me, and together, we'll make Minneapolis a place where safety, affordability, and opportunity work for everyone. Let's do this. Show up and caucus for change.
This advertisement was paid for by candidate Shelley Medore for Ward 2.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and I am delighted that you joined our conversation today. Our topic has been looking at women, leadership, their stories, the humor and the philosophy, and the challenges women face, which is a great book to be reading now when you're feeling a little frustrated with the world you're in. Engage with women from the past and the present that can allow us to think perhaps in a new way and give us hope for the future. Hosting with me is Rick Bernardo, who has invited a very special guest.
Gina Barreca, professor at University of Connecticut, humorist, feminist, writer in all kinds of ways, including her new book, Fast Famous Women. The previous book that we had her on for is Fast Fallen Women, which you can find also at bookstores. It's Fallen Women, but it's not even on the bottom shelf. It's right up there. So there's a whole series of books that are great, and she's working on all kinds of things in the future. Gina, what are you working on as well as always? You're always writing on social media as well.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I mean, words are how I. Like you, it's through a different medium. I mean, it's mostly, words on the page rather than spoken word, but although I love this too, obviously, but it's getting it out there. And it's really the sense of, I think I write, and I think it's when people really respond. It's when I'm feeling, am I the only one thinking this? I mean, the questions when I put up on Facebook, and I'd be delighted for people to come to the Facebook page, which is just, again, Gina Barreca. It's very easy. But it's, to put up that really do start conversations. And it's interesting what people want to talk about. Because if I put up something that is a large philosophical issue, it's like some people will do it. But if you put up a question that asks somebody, just like, what do you think about that? Like a very particular thing. It's like, I was having a bad day. And often Facebook or social media is like when people are like, this is perfect. And it's like, this is a terrible morning. Everything is going wrong. I just feel like I'm incompetent and outdated and, anachronistic. And I'm never, I'm out of this. What do you do if you feel this way? Hundreds of people wrote.
Wow.
I mean, people wrote, and they wrote in to say, I feel exactly the same way, and I want to hear what other people do for advice. Other people wrote and said, start drinking earlier in the day. Other people started talking about how volunteering and working with the community. There were serious answers, there were funny answers, but there was a sense of commiseration, and there was a sense of people just wanting to talk. Mm-hmm. Just, again, wanting to be, not just to see somebody in, making balloon animals in Disney World, but to actually be asked the question of like, this is a rotten morning. And I realize I'm still living a privileged life, but I am having a rotten morning.
Any kind of community is so essential and vital, especially these days.
And we come back from the pandemic when we were all isolated. Right. And we've tried to kind of make our way out of the darkness into like community. And now we're facing some really horrific things in community. We kind of want to go back, I think, in some ways to our our time when we could be isolated. So
Well,
it's
but
this-
that's it. It's like the chosen isolation, and I think to make sure, as again as your show does, is to make sure that people feel as if there are conversations that they'll walk away from where they are more energized than when they came in.
Right.
We
And
want
make sure-
access for people. We want access to other energies. They're all,
Right.
you know, the old cultures talk about spirits, and there's
Yeah.
other spirits of ancestors and all kinds of energies we can access, but not alone sometimes.
Right. And I think that just that sense of you're not the only one, it
Mhm.
is astonishingly reassuring. And finally, that is, I think, what the, famous women and the books that I've written in the past. I mean, I wrote a book called Babes in Boyland that about being one of the first women at what had been an all-male college, but that's still taught. That's taught in memoir classes and classes on autobiography. Now I'm old enough to be there as again to give a historical context on what it was like to be an outsider, because the idea of the marginalized figures, and when simply being a woman was a marginalized figure, I mean, and then but opening up the conversation for other people who have been pushed to the wall, or that it's still harder for them to get inside the gate, and you feel like you're breaking into a place as opposed to breaking out of it.
I vividly remember my first year. It's at the University of Virginia. It was the first year that women were allowed to go to the University of Virginia.
And have we ever discussed that in detail? Because Babes in Boyland, I was the third class of women at Dartmouth College.
Yeah.
And it was still a 7-to-1 male-female ratio. I mean, it was a bizarre thing. But I think
in our dormitory, we had, of course, it was a male dormitory before we moved in. So we were like putting potted plants in the urinals.
absolutely right. I
Can
mean,
we just liven this up in a feminine way, please?
yeah, exactly. Because we don't pee in a trough. It's a different kind of thing. It's a different, but so finding in the various ways that I've written to say out loud what it would be very easy to internalize and to be embarrassed by, and that to realize by putting our lives out there, that actually is every time somebody who's told to be quiet or to be nice their whole lives speaks up, it is an act of defiance and insurgence and sedition. And I really kind of like that idea.
It's good for fast, famous women, especially.
It's good for everybody.
And for men like me that had some models through my mother was very clear about, look, feminism is just about being fair. Hello.
Yeah.
So that's all it's about.
And back to those 3 words that are now no-nos.
Right, exactly. Right.
It's about equity and inclusion, and why not celebrate?
Yeah. I mean, my definition of feminism is, the radical belief that women are human beings.
Yeah.
And
that can be radical to some.
and that it's going to become increasingly that, unless again we shine light on it, which is what humor does. Humor illuminates, and it refuses to let things sort of sneak in the corner and remain undiscussed. But so the next book is coming out in the fall, and it's a new kind of version of things for me because it's an illustrated. I found one of my former students who draws like Edward Gorey. I mean, he's an amazing pen and ink artist, and that's called Gina School.
And we'll have to have you back for that.
Oh,
I only have like a minute left, but we'd love to have you come back and tell us about Gina School. We want to make sure that folks know about GinaBarreca.com. WoodhallPress.com is where you can get your book. Go out and get this book. This is a wonderful way to cope and envision and feel connected to great women.
It's a great read, and it pops, and it's fast, famous women.
Gina, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's such a pleasure to be part of the conversation and connection. Thank you.
Yes, and you bring us insights and humor and delight every time you join us, and so we always treasure the time with you. And with that, again, don't miss Fast, Famous Women, a great book.
end-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful